Let's bring in Cherie Gartner. Awesome. Hey, Cherie, how are you? Oh, you know what, Cherie, you're on. Yeah, you're on mute.
I'm off mute now. So hello, everyone.
Awesome. I love seeing that beautiful Geneva skyline behind you. So yeah.
Coming in live from Geneva.
That's awesome. It's beautiful. And Nirav Desai is our Associate VP of our GSI programs. And Nirav, welcome as well.
Thank you, Chip. Hi, Cherie. So excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really happy to participate.
Awesome, awesome. Cherie needs no introduction, I think, most on this.
Nirav, I'm gonna let you guys take it away, and I will watch and be cheering on from the sidelines.
Thank you, Chip.
Okay.
Thank you, Chip.
So Cherie, as I mentioned, needs no introduction. She leads the partner ecosystem at DXC, one of the largest system integrators in the world. Cherie joins us from the beautiful Switzerland, so we're all jealous here. So Cherie, we met last at the IDC Strategic Council meeting, and a lot has changed since then, right? Clearly, this is a very important milestone. It's going to be before COVID and after COVID, if you will, and maybe during COVID as well. So before we get into the specific questions, tell us about your role at DXC, especially with the new macro environment. What are the key challenges, opportunities, and how do you see your role shaping up? And I think that's a pertinent question for a lot of ecosystem leaders on this ecosystem here, both from a strategic standpoint as well as the practitioners more at the operation level.
Right. No, I think it's a great question, Nirav. So first and foremost, thank you again for allowing me to participate. It's been an excellent ecosystem summit so far today. And I guess I would just say, obviously you already mentioned to everyone, and Amit mentioned at the beginning that I'm globally leading our partner network and our ecosystem, which consists of over 200 partners as well as third-party advisors. And while I'm leading the organization, or this partner ecosystem, if you will, I do have to say first and foremost that I have an outstanding team of professionals that are helping to make this happen together, because really, when you look at what is the value of an ecosystem, it's not about one person, it's about the village that we're creating and the dynamic opportunities that we're bringing together to really drive the growth. So, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and now, when we get into recovery, again, I'll talk through some of the things today around how the roles are evolving and what does this mean not only to our partners, our teams, but also to our clients.
Awesome, awesome. So let's bring it down to specifics, right? So what's the role of ecosystems at DXC in terms of driving growth or innovation with partners or competitive advantage? How are you shepherding that ship today?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, we have over 200 partners within our ecosystem and third-party advisors. And when I look at what that means really from an ecosystem standpoint, we need to have a robust partner ecosystem that really directly contributes to our DXC growth. And this is going to only happen through the collaborative partnership strategies that we're putting in motion to really allow us to achieve more success as we're working together. And I think second, we heard, the different discussions about the Amplify program or the Embrace program. And really, I think that's a testament to show that as we look at an ecosystem to drive the growth and bring the innovation and even to bring the competitive advantages, we need to really optimize the routes to market and have different strategies that absolutely align to a client first perspective to allow us to really create a disruptive ecosystem with programs that are going to be relevant. So Margaret and Connor spoke about that, and John and us did as well. So really, I think having that broad offer of how you can develop out a program that has specific solution areas really helps to allow and enable us to accelerate. And from a DXC standpoint as well, we do the same thing. We look at our enterprise technology stack, which Mike Salvino, our CEO, has put in place as part of our strategy, to then look at how are we working with our clients to really enable that broad array of technologies and skill sets that our clients are looking for the business outcomes that they're looking to see, as well as the innovation that they're expecting from us. So as we look at all of that, that really brings forward, different areas of differentiation to allow us to really help our clients with their transformation journeys. And I think when you look at then the robust partner ecosystem, the optimizing of the go-to-market strategies in the channel, and then looking at how we're bringing forward various technologies, all of that helps be packaged into the competitive advantages.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very well said. Very well said. So has the new macro environment, changed your go-to-market offerings, especially with your key partners? And if you could also talk about, how the partnering world is also changing, right? There are new business models, kind of, I think when you last met, you talked about a few new business models as well. So you could talk to that as well.
Right. Well, and I think, Amit did a great job at the beginning of this session where he was really talking about, how the ecosystem is evolving now in the COVID environment, and then where we need to be post-COVID. And he talked a lot about how we assess and stabilize and grow. And I think that, when we look at the events of COVID, things radically changed overnight. I don't think anyone in the world could have anticipated what change this would bring and what onset of new areas of opportunities that we need to look at, or business model shifts that we need to be making. So absolutely, when we look at, from my perspective, all of these things coming together, I kind of think of it as, it's the ecosystems are serving as what I would call kind of that connected tissue of bringing together people, process, and technology. And then now with this new world of an ecosystem, I see it as being really critical to the muscle memory that we need to build. So all of that will help kind of transform what business models we're going to be then encountering or developing, because we have to all respond differently than the ways in which we did before COVID. So this has drastically changed or radically changed the way in which we're going to market. So to your question, I think all organizations, including the different discussions we've had already today, really is demonstrating that shift in the ecosystem, and then what does this mean for our teams and our partners and for our clients.
Mm-hmm. So, in the earlier world, the partnerships were more, unilateral, one-to-one partnerships. Increasingly, you're seeing, three-way, four-way, five-way partnerships, especially with the new business paradigms like, 5G, IoT, etc. What are the challenges and opportunities that you are facing while putting together these multi-way partnerships or ecosystems?
Well, I think that we had great examples that Atis and John spoke about, and then even Connor and Margaret, right? It's showing you that an ecosystem is of togetherness. You have to look at collaboration, innovation, differentiation, and all of us need to look at almost a multi-pronged approach for what our clients are looking for, because the world is very dynamic. So we need to look at bringing and stitching all of these things together. And I think now when you look at COVID and what this is doing, it's really becoming more around the strategic resiliency. And organizations right now are really looking at resiliency in a different way, not only in disaster recovery or systems backup or alternative suppliers, or now working from home and all of these other things. Critical operations becomes paramount to the way in which we drive the ecosystem. And I think that, this right now is assessing, almost providing some of the lessons for the future around what is this partner ecosystem or this ecosystem look like? Because again, we can't do everything on our own. We have to bring all of these pieces together and look at a triangulation that is what our clients are expecting, but then also leveraging then the strengths of where other organizations are at, or what technology areas they bring into the fold. So in my view, that transformation then is going to really be heavily reliant on some of the key areas that I would describe as, just simple things. Again, enabling the teams, how are we driving the co-selling efforts? And Addison and John spoke about that. And even in the ways in which that extends the channel, I think all organizations are looking at what's the objective of the ecosystem to really drive that success and to deliver that core technology, but then almost creating that sales motion that's going to then be relevant for what our clients are looking for. And I think secondly, delivering with agility and speed. We see what happened overnight with COVID. I mean, it transformed everyone's lives personally and professionally overnight. It radically changed the way in which we're living, operating, and how we're working. So delivering with agility and speed, our customers are demanding, more agile partners, and they're looking at the digital business needs, again, to be delivered rapidly. And markets, as they rapidly evolve, and now with COVID, the business models absolutely are changing, and we all are experiencing that. There's not one organization could say that they are the same as they were, pre-COVID. And I think the third thing, that the speed of response is going to be really critical when we look at our ecosystem. So when you talk about, before it was more one-to-one, now it is very much triangulated and bringing all these pieces together, that we need to look at the agility and speed as to how do we deliver, and what are our clients looking for that really is going to be digitized with a strategic program. And then how do we have the operational effectiveness and the organizational structure to really drive that execution, which I think leads me to my fourth point of that question, is really being laser focused on driving that customer success. So focus again on gaining and retaining that whole deliver lifetime of value that I think is going to be extremely critical for where we are at with the ecosystems that all of us are either running or being part of, because that's what's going to differentiate and have us stand out as leaders as we tackle the new challenges and obstacles that are in front of us.
Awesome. So, Cherie, you have laid out a great strategic construct and a framework to, drive agility, resiliency, business continuity, and customer success. Talk about, if you were to drill it down to a little further, talk about specific changes that you have made around your teams, which is people, processes, as well as technology, to kind of, orchestrate this. And what are some challenges that you're facing, and what are the things that you think you could improve, or you could work along with your partners like Microsoft, Intel, SAP, etc., to drive a win-win with your partners?
Right. I mean, it's a great question. I think organizationally, everyone is in the same position where they are looking at what business models they're going to bring forward to really drive the change that is relevant in the marketplace today. So I think from my perspective, when I took over this role in August last year, was really to look at the framework and the areas that we were working through to develop out a certain governance and a programmatic approach to really start to prioritize where we need to be with our partners and really be able to show the return of what value that the teams are bringing. So certainly it timed very nicely with Mike Salvino being appointed as our new CEO, to then look at, as he's bringing forward his strategy around the enterprise technology stack, how do we take the best of what capabilities our partners are bringing into the fold around the technology areas to then really maximize and optimize where we're able to effectively partner? And then how do we then bring that to market into a programmatic way to help us with the execution? So certainly we have made changes in the way in which we're going to market, but the way in which we're working with our partners remains the same, that we must have, and we do have, a strong ecosystem to really leverage the strength of others, as well as how we then bring the blended teams together to provide that value add and business outcomes, to what our clients are looking for. Because not only the way in which we partner together, it's really what level of co-innovation are we developing together with our partners to create a foothold around how we differentiate ourselves. And I think that is then what our teams are currently doing to really drive that momentum and also excel on what our partners are expecting as we further team together and drive a marketplace.
Excellent. Are you using any digital tools or platforms to drive that collaboration between both your internal ecosystem, which is employees spread across 200 countries, and external partners as well? Whether it's a system of record or a system of collaboration or a system of insights, that can help you drive some of these agility, business continuity and some of the success, mutual success that you're driving?
Right. I would say that without calling out which technology or tools that we're currently using, I would say that there's always open room for opportunity. Because I think as we look at the evolving ecosystem and things that we need to be doing to exhibit more agility and responsiveness, there are different things that we should invest in as we look at driving the investments that we need to be making internally to showcase the measurement and the returns or the levels of performance that we're driving with our partners.
Mm-hmm. One of the key aspects of multi-party ecosystems, multi-partner ecosystems, is governance. Do you have any insights or best practices around governance, right from executive sponsorship to at the operationalizing it around specific solutions or joint go-to-market?
Well, I would say that, governance, as everyone on this call and those that will listen to this later, they will absolutely agree that governance is the key. Because if you do not have the right governance structure, it's very difficult to have the executive stakeholder relationships management coverage, our stakeholders are expecting, right? So it's really when we look at, and I did publish a blog on this and wrote just a short article around, how do we engage and where do we enable and how do we evangelize? And all of this, from my perspective, just threads back into the governance structure that's required, because it's really the place where market drivers and also our customer needs and technologies all meet. And it's at that intersection point where it drives the greatest level of opportunity. But if you don't have the level of governance or the cadence or the rigor, the discipline, the tools, all of it then is not seen. So I think that for what we are doing from a DXC perspective is really driving a governance structure that is aligned to very specific measurable goals and areas that we are holding ourselves accountable to really drive and achieve together with our partners. So we're not doing things in isolation from a partner organization standpoint. We're really branching out to make sure that all levels of stakeholder management is on board with the objectives and the relevance of what we're trying to drive together with our partnerships. And I think truly only that way allows us to engage more effectively, enable our teams more effectively, and then also really helps us to evangelize, what we are actually doing together with our partnerships to create this differentiation.
Mm-hmm. Tied to the governance is also metrics. How do you measure success both internally as well as communicate it with your partners? Again, at the senior management level, at the same time, and at the operational level. Can you talk about some specific examples of how you are creating, measuring, and communicating value both internally as well as externally?
Well, I would say that, obviously there would be nothing necessarily unique around the way DXC measures the level of KPIs as well as the joint KPIs, I should say, with our partners, because obviously our organization, just like others, has a tiering structure around how we partner and what this means from a level of expectation standpoint. I think the more important question, actually, what I would say is that you need to have a straightforward, transparent communication plan around the strategic, areas that you're going to focus on, and then prioritize that into a level that is digestible for the teams. So, Addis spoke about how not having something at the global level that's not then localized or felt in region, and John elaborated on this as well. And I totally agree that if you have a set of KPIs, you need to make sure that it's down at the field level. Otherwise, just doing something for the sake of doing it is just an activity for the sake of an activity. It's not driving the level of value, nor is it getting the level of recognition. So things have to be measured and they have to be actually agreed, so you're able to stay course around the expectations of what is really going to define the level of success with that partner. So, and I think when you look at, just even the evolution of the ecosystem, and Amit spoke about this with different areas of assessing and stabilizing and growing, I think that's really also a very, very key area to stay current today with how we're going to then position ourselves for the future, for tomorrow, because otherwise we're not going to be able to keep pace with where the market is. So you absolutely need to have the KPIs to measure the level of success. And that drives the accountability and the ownership.
Mhm. And how do you do that today? Is it through, weekly governance calls, monthly calls, QBRs? Is it Excel sheets, floating around between organizations? Do you have
It's
any?
all, it's all of that. It's all of that plus more. I mean, that's the reality of today. We have many different tools and things that we use, but I think the level of cadence and the governance from the CEO level down to, our exec sponsors that are on our various partnerships, obviously everyone needs to be aligned to the same goals. We do have a very rigorous structure around the disciplined approach. And again, some partnerships we're able to do it better than others, but at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're working in concert with our partners and we're aligned to the same metrics so we're able to really drive that success. Because again, the whole purpose of having a robust partner ecosystem is to have a very structured network that has the level of reciprocity and also expectations on both, because we can't do everything ourselves. And again, just as Margaret spoke about, even with the Embrace program, there are a lot of things that, that is also important for the GSIs to be able to bring to bear. So for us as well, we need to look at different programs and areas of measurement that we're going to be able to help make ourselves be more relevant in the marketplace.
Okay. I have one last question, and then going to turn it over to Chip. I just got a timer alert there. But with a crystal ball, if you were to gaze a few months down the line, or maybe a couple of years down the line, any thoughts around the key trends that you're seeing emerging? And two is, with so many participants here, do you have any piece of advice or guidance around best practices or some of the learnings that you've had so far?
So I think, Nirav, that's a very packed question with best practices and trends and
sure.
I think what I would summarize it as is that, this is everyone's time to look at what we need to do differently. And I think from just a bit of advice is that we're all in this together. We have to, again, like I said in the beginning, it takes a village to make things happen. And I think in the times that we're in as well, there's a new reality check around what is tomorrow going to look like. And if we wait to anticipate what tomorrow is without acting right now, I think all of us are going to be behind. So one of the things actually that I would just maybe leave you all with, and it's something when you look at everything in the press and you're working with different partnerships, I actually would like to just provide a quote that Pat Gelsinger from VMware, CEO of VMware, stated on one of his partner ecosystem calls that I found very relevant. And I think it's really important because I think he captured it really well. So if I just look at, what he said, at a time when business as usual is not an option, we need to focus on helping each other and assisting our customers as they respond and adapt. And as we navigate this global pandemic, the future of work is changing. The work from home model becomes the norm and work itself becomes more distributed. So we need to continue to build infrastructure and technology solutions optimized for the workplace of the future. This is a black swan event that I believe will permanently change the way we work, learn, connect, worship, and simply how we live in community with each other. And I think Pat did a great job at capturing that quote because all of us are experiencing a new normal. And I think that the changes that we have in front of us, no one can anticipate. So the trends are going to shift and we have to exhibit agility and we have to exhibit that strategic resiliency to show that we all are in it to survive and to thrive. And I think that he did an excellent job at summarizing that. And it's something that I do think about because it is this world that we're in right now has changed. And it's all up to us to take part in how we drive that change forward.
Touche, Cherie, this is awesome. Packed 30 minutes of great insights. Right at this
and I'm the last one of the day.
You have the last word as well. But thank you. This has been fascinating, and I'll hand it over to Chip for questions from the audience.
Sure, this was fantastic. Gosh, Amit just put in the chat, number of insights per minute from Cherie is off the charts.
Well, I'm keeping all of you from your next meeting or your next meal or your next beverage.
It's so true. No, I just loved how you you connected everything to customers. I loved how you were actually reflecting on what Addis and John and Margaret and Connor talked about, and sort of tying all these things together. Really glad that you did such a nice job. I love, yeah, again, I love the customer angle. It's all about customers. Coordinating with partners, KPIs and measurement, and then agility. And your final point of, we got to be ahead. We've got to be ahead. So just terrific session.
Great. Well, thank you for including me.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions, and one actually was not sort of officially in the questions, but it was a question that Leah McLean asked, and she said, "What advice do you have on bringing together an ecosystem consisting of 2 ISVs, 1 channel partner, MSP, MSSP, and a cloud service provider in terms of fair revenue share, best experience for the customer?"
That's a very good question. I think that when you look at all of those pieces and really how you assemble almost all of those puzzle pieces together, you need to look at what's an optimal outcome for each. Because again, when you look at building an ecosystem, there has to be mutual benefit and there has to be mutual value. And each person, I mean, if we asked everyone on this call, what does value look like, or what is that optimal customer success story going to look like, everyone would have a different viewpoint. So I think my advice is that make sure that when you're entering into that triangulation, that you're really having the conversations around what is the mutual value and what is the expected outcome that we're all trying to drive together, just to make sure everyone is on the same, piece of paper working from that same sheet.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. It's like a balanced scorecard of like, what's everybody looking for? What is everybody's objectives? And let's make sure that we're all in agreement with that, and then marching towards that. That's terrific.
And I think the other thing, Chip, is that, when you look at having that balanced scorecard, if you will, you need to be agile to iterate, and you need to be flexible to make changes as you go. Because if you have a mindset that everything needs to be a certain way, and the expectation of X is then going to generate Y, if you're not flexible in an approach, you may miss great opportunities, because the market's constantly evolving. So you have to be nimble.
Yeah. Awesome. Another good question here from Justin Wisniewski. I'm curious, as a current partner of DXC, how can a partner take the relationship further if we can replicate what we're doing with the large customers we are supporting across the board? Success would be huge. Asking for meetings is one thing, but how do we bring stakeholders together?
So Justin, it's a great question, and I know I owe you a phone call, so we definitely do have to meet. So I think that it's on me, and the action's on me to have that direct conversation with you. And I think then we'll get further. So I'm just going to answer the question that way, because I know Justin.
Okay.
So Justin, we'll take time to meet, I promise.
Okay. Justin says thank you. Okay, awesome. So terrific. I think that is it for the other questions that folks have asked. Bijit Mazunder says, "What a brilliant session! The insights and perspectives are spot on. Thank you, Cherie and Nirav." So, really terrific session. I'd echo that, and thank you, guys.